So, good afternoon, everyone, and welcome back to the class on smart materials and structures. So, in today's morning session, we had just started out to get the Euler's-Bernoulli equation for the stress strain distribution and also how it affects when free strain is coming into picture, right? So, we derived few equations and we were half the way in getting the final equation. So I suppose I revised in the morning class also what we have dealt. So it was related to Euler-Bernoulli equation. We studied the strain and stress distribution, and we focused about the free strain, what happens when the superposition of the free strain takes place, and then we came into the evaluation of the stress and the strain across the structure as well as the actuator. So we had dealt until now. So we derived the equation for the actuator as well as the structure, both for stress as well as strain distribution. So next, we should consider one more condition by putting the setting that Z is equal to H. You know that Z is along the axis in which we do the polarization. So if that Z axis yields to the value of H, what do you mean by H? H is nothing but the vertical height of the structure. So here you have studied. So this is the value of H, which is half the value of the structure above the neutral axis. If this H is equivalent to our Z axis, what will be the amplification we get in the stress and the strain? So that now we have to consider. To mean to say that you have the upper limit of the height for the structure. I told you the thickness of the structure and the thickness of the PZT patch depends upon the requirement. So with respect to the thickness, the stress and the strain values also changes. So now we have to put the condition that the height of the structure is equivalent to the value what you are putting across the z-axis. In that condition, what happens? So you have here the equation for the stress across the actuator, what we have studied already. So in this case, you should put Z is equal to H. So here you have Z and this is our H. So if you replace H over here, H and H gets cancelled. So equation gets simplified. So it will be this is the elastic modulus of the actuator. In the bracket, you will be having the strain across the structure at H minus the free strain. So this will be the value. Then you take outside the bracket and simplify. You will get this value. So strain across the actuator into the free strain is written here. Since it is negative, we will take outside the equation towards the left hand side. It becomes positive. So the elastic modulus of the actuator into the strain across the substrate at H is retained in the right hand side because it is positive. So this value will be here. And the actuator stress, which was on the left hand side, so we will take it towards our right hand side. So it becomes minus. So this is how the equation gets reduced when the value of H of the structure above the neutral axis is equal to the value of Z. So once this you have derived, so then you will make other small simplifications. So now you can go back to the equation here where the stress of the actuator is equal to the same thing you will write. E suffix A, this is nothing but the elastic modulus of the actuator into the free strain of the structure multiplied by Z upon H minus you have now the value of E suffix A. This value you have to substitute because if you multiply, if you are confusing, I will again explain you. So this is the basic equation. So when Z is equal to H, I told you how the equation gets changed. So now you have the value for the elastic modulus of the actuator with its free strain. So this terminology is there in this equation 2.27 already. So this you get if you multiply the elastic modulus of the actuator into the free strain of the piezo element. So same thing we are substituting here. So you go back to the equation. The stress across the actuator you will write as it is. Okay. So then you will multiply the stress across the actuator into the free strain of the structure by removing the bracket. So you will get E suffix A into the stress across the structure. In the bracket, you will write Z by H. So minus sign you will retain as it is. Then you will multiply the stress across the actuator into the free strain. That value you have derived as what? See here, the stress value of the actuator into the free strain value is equal to this much. So this value you will replace in place of EA into stress, EA into the free strain. So you will get this value written over here. So in this equation, again, which is common factor, you have to see the stress across the actuator into the free strain at the structure above the neutral axis, right? So if you take this as common, so everything, so it will be 1 minus Z of H. Here you have Z of H retained, so we'll write it as Z of H, and here it is only elastic modulus into the free strain, so you will write it as 1 over here. So this is how the equation get reduced. Here is a small change in the sign. So what is it? Is you are taking first this term and then you are taking this term. And you are taking here the stress across the actuator here as the first. It is positive, even here it is positive. It is negative, even it is negative. Only thing is sign change within these two parameters. Okay, so with that, after removing the common factor, this will be the equation what will be yielded. So now you have the equation which has the combination of stress and the strain together. Until now, we used to evaluate the strain separately and stress separately with respect to the neutral axis. So now, after assuming Z is equal to H, we got an equation for free strain also associated with elastic modulus. So once you get the value for the free strain associated with elastic modulus, we substituted this value back to the equation and then we simplified such that now the stress of the actuator is in combination with the strain also. So you have the stress factor and you have the strain factor in a common equation. So this is how you have to club together the stress and the strain. Until now, even in the axial rod motion, we derived the equation for stress distribution separately and strain distribution separately. But when bending comes into picture, we have to correlate to get the equation which has both the stress and the strain factor together. So this is how you have to reduce. Simple, the same equation, you will assume Z is equal to H, then you will simplify and get the value. Then this EA and the strain factor will be substituted in the back equation and you will simplify to get the stress as well as the strain in the same equation by taking the common factor in both the terms. Is that clear? Hello? Hello? Yeah. So after that, yeah, thank you. After that, now you have to focus on bending moment. So whenever the load is subjected, bending takes place. When the bending takes place, even the bending moment also comes into picture that you have studied in your BTech level in strength of materials also, right? So this is a common thing what you know already. But you should be knowing how to correlate this bending moment also. So now in the previous slide, we got the equation for both stress and strain together. So once you have got the equation for both stress and strain together, what you have to now do is, the above equation represents the relationship between stress and strain across the given PZT element. So here the stress in the beam is at the interface and piezoelectric strain. So what stress and strain you are getting in the previous equation is across the interface. What do you mean by interface? We have studied the interface relation also between the actuator and the structure in previous class. So all variations what happens across the interface of the structure and the actuator is yielded in this equation in terms of stress and strain. So that is what being told over here. So once you have the stress and strain associated across the interface in between the actuator and the structure, then you will calculate the bending moment across the neutral axis. Remember, always when you determine the moment, you should be having one reference plane. So here the moments are calculated about the neutral axis. Why? Due to the stress resultant must balance. You need to determine the moment across the neutral axis, because whatever the stress which is coming across have to balance, and this will balance only across the neutral axis. At the neutral axis there will be no effect. Above the neutral axis you have compression, and below the neutral axis you have tension, and you have stress distribution both at the top surface of the structure and bottom surface of the structure. So due to the compression and the tension, the stress and strain is generated in both the part of the structure, but the effect of both the structure gets nullified across the neutral axis, and hence at the neutral axis the stress resultant will be balanced. Due to this aspect, you will develop the moment across the neutral axis, and hence this is the equation. To get the moment across the neutral axis, you have to integrate the components from different intervals. What are these? Because you have the structure going from the neutral axis to the height of h. So above the height of h, you have a PZT patch of T suffix A. So that I have shown you in the beginning of the diagram. Now also I'll show you again. See, this is the beam structure, the entire beam structure. The entire height will be capital H. If you take above the neutral axis, this is our neutral axis, where the stress will be, where the resultant of the stress will be balanced. At balance, we are determining the bending moment. For that, you should take two intervals. Neutral axis will be referred from 0. So 0 to h, you have to take the variations which is coming across the structure. And plus, again, you have to integrate from h to T suffix A. What are the variation in the stress and the strain it is coming into picture. So we have two intervals. The reference neutral axis will be 0. 0 to h will be one integral, and this surface is h. So the other integral will be from h to T suffix A. So T suffix A will be the thickness of the PZT patch, and this will be the vertical height of the beam structure. And this h will be equal to half of the TS. If you consider this entire as the T, the thickness of the beam structure, T suffix S, then h will be equal to T suffix S by 2. That also we have studied already. You can see in the equation over here. The same concept now we will apply to develop the moment equation. So now you have two integrals. You can see one you have integral from 0 to h, as I explained you with the diagram, and the second integral is from h to h plus TA. So you will be adding both. It is not like you will just measure TA. Why? Because the stress generated across the structure as well as the piezo element will be interrelated, and it will be superimposed across the interface where you get the free strain. This concept you have to remember, or else you will take 0 to h and from h to TA. No, 0 to h will provide you only this distance, but when you go for the PZ patch, the strain distribution in the PZ patch and the stress distribution in the PZ patch is affected by the strain or the stress induced in the structure also. And hence you have to take again reference from here, h plus TA you will take. And hence you should be very clear with respect to the integrals. Okay, and hence 0 to h and h to h plus TA. So this will be the two integrals what you will be adding to get the moment about the neutral surface, because you should get the data everything above the neutral surface. So above the neutral surface you have two parts. One is the structure, another one is a PZ patch. So ultimate height should show you the structure height plus the PZT patch also. So after you're clear about the integrals, you should see the terms which are being mentioned here. So for moment to happen, you should be knowing what is the stress which is being induced in that structure. So first, from 0 to h, what element you have? You have only the structure, right? If you see the diagram over here, from 0 to h, it is only the beam or the structure part. So in the beam or the structure part, you will be having only the stress induced in the structure, not of the piezoelectric element. And hence what you will write here in the equation, it is the stress induced in the structure. Into, you have to multiply with B. What is B? It is the width of the beam structure. I told you when explaining in the axial road motion. The same concept we'll use. So the width from this point to this. So this will be the entire width, what we call it as B. B into Z. So this axis is our Z and this is our, what is this axis? This axis is nothing but, anyone can tell me? Until now we have explained so many times. Here it will be what?
Neutral.
Yeah?
Neutral axis.
Yeah, neutral axis. Towards the neutral axis, you can measure both the stress and the strain, right? So this is the direction in which you will be having the polarization axis, which is Z axis. It will also refer the vertical height of the structure as well as the piezo patch. So this distance we will measure as width, which will be referred as B, and this is the distance what we measure across Z axis. So same thing has been measured over here in the integral. So first you will write the stress across the structure multiplied by the width of the structure into the height of the structure across the Z axis. So you will differentiate that with respect to dz, right? So you will write this. So this is only the part for our structure. Then we will come into picture for our PZT patch. So PZT patch, you should take the integral from h to h plus TA as explained to you. Then you will write the stress across the actuator multiplied by, again, the width of the PZT patch is same as that of the structure. As per the diagram here, the width of the PZT patch and the width of the structure both are same. If this is B, even this length will be B. So you'll multiply by the same parameter B. Okay, so you'll multiply by B. Again, the height is measured across the Z axis. You will write into Z and it is differentiated with respect to dz. So for the bending moment across the neutral axis, you have to keep your right hand side equated to 0 as a basic concept of moment. So this will be the moment equation across the neutral axis to see that the stress resultant value will be 0 or it is balanced. So once this is done, this equation, what we have got now, should be substituted. Why? To develop an relationship between stress in the beam across the interface. So in order to develop the stress in the entire beam across the interface, this is the equation what we use. So it will provide you the stress across the entire structure that will be equated to the stress across the entire actuator at h, means the vertical height above the neutral axis. All we are referring is above the neutral axis, remember. So please don't neglect to write the suffix here h also. So this bending equation will help to provide an relation between the stress across the structure and stress across the actuator, because you can see both the terms here together, right? So stress across the structure will be equal to stress across the actuator with one proportionality concept. So this K is the constant value. So K constant value will be given by this many terms. There is no derivation for you. You have to show the bending moment and you should say that this bending moment helped to get an relation between the stress across the structure as well as the strain. So to get a relation across the stress and the stress across the structure and the beam, across the interface, this will be the equation. So in this equation, K is the constant or the proportionality symbol which doesn't have any unit. So it is a dimensionless number. And the value of this K, which is the constant, is equal to this much. So this constant is again basically derivation. It has some lengthy process. All those are not there in the syllabus. Okay. So here terminologies, if you want, is the same. So H will be nothing but the height of the beam structure above the neutral axis, and TA will be the T suffix A will be the thickness of the PZT patch. Okay. And ER is nothing but the ratio with the Young's modulus, elastic modulus of the structure to elastic modulus of the structure. Elastic modulus of the actuator to elastic modulus of the structure is given by E suffix R. Okay, this is a new term, what you have to understand. So this constant of proportionality will provide you the ratio between the elastic modulus of actuator to elastic modulus of the structure. So this you can achieve when you find a relationship between the stress across the structure to stress across the actuator. Okay, so once you got the relation between the stress across the structure and stress across the actuator, and relationship between the elastic modulus of the actuator to elastic modulus of the structure, you should apply the concept of Hooke's law. So what is Hooke's law? Anyone can tell me? You have studied Hooke's law very long back, right from 11th standard, 12th standard. What do you mean by Hooke's law? Anyone?
But stress is trying to be directly proportional to each other with the elastic.
Okay. So Hooke's law, always, as one of your friend told, so it defines like what is the amount of force needed, whether if you apply to any component like in spring. So when it could be compressed, and again it comes back to its position in a linear scale with respect to the distance, where K is called to be as a constant fraction, constant factor. So similarly, the same concept of Hooke's law, it will be now applied across the interface. So interface is nothing but between our actuator and the structure. So using the concept of Hooke's law, so this will be the equation. Before we had the equation for shear stress to, we had the stress value of the structure to stress value of the actuator. So now you applying the Hooke's law, you have to use some constant factor. Here we will be using the elastic modulus of the structure, because it should be able to compress and come back to its original position, where the structural elastic modulus plays a vital role. And hence here instead of K, we will use E suffix S, and remaining thing will be the same. So now you have the relation for the stress and the strain. Okay. Previously you had the relation between stress of the structure to stress of the actuator. Then you had the relation between elastic modulus of the actuator to elastic modulus of the structure. Now to get an equation between the stress and the strain across the structure or the actuator, you will be applying the concept of Hooke's law. So based on the Hooke's law, for the structure, this will be the equation. So stress along the structure will be equal to the strain induced along the structure with respect to its elastic modulus, which is E suffix S. Similarly, when it comes to the stress generated across the actuator, you have to subtract the strain of the structure with the free strain. This we have studied already. So here EA will be nothing but our elastic modulus. So both these equations are derived based on our Hooke's law. So now one by one, first we studied the strain distribution, we studied the stress distribution, then we tried to club both together for superposition with respect to free strain. Then we tried to derive an equation with stress and strain together. After that, we tried to develop the moment across the given equation, right? So to develop the moment equation, we learned the integral factor, how you have to combine from 0 to H to H plus Ta. Then we got a relation between the stress induced in both the surface, because you have to understand the interface. So with that, we came to know the constant factor, which is the dimensionless number. And in this dimensionless number, you had a word called E suffix R, which helped us to figure out even the ratio between elastic modulus of the actuator to elastic modulus of the structure. So after that, you applied the Hooke's law to get the equation what you have used before. That is the relation between the stress across the structure to the strain and stress across the actuator to that of the strain. So once this is being understood, now you have to make some small changes. So these equations, so you now have two equations related to stress and strain. Then what we do is, we will try to relate the strain of the structure with some parameters associated with P. Okay, so what is this P? You have to first understand. So when we substitute the previous equations, which has been developed by Hooke's law, into a relationship, so this helps in providing a relation between the strain across the interface to the actuator free strain. Why we did so much of circus in the previous slide? Because we needed the strain across the interface of the piezoelectric material and the structure. So after doing all these calculations, finally this is the equation what we get, they are justifying. So you don't have any derivation to yield with this equation. So once after showing these equations, you will just say these equation substitution will help you to get a relation between the stress and the strain across the interface. But here the letter P sounds little bit different for you people. So what is this letter P? Okay, so here P is equal to K times E suffix R. So E suffix R is nothing but the ratio of elastic modulus of the actuator to elastic modulus of the strain. And you know the value of K, which is the dimensionless number, what we have got here. So this is the value of K, you know. And this is the value of ER, you know. So when you clap the dimensionless number constant with the elastic modulus ratio, then you get the value of P. Okay, so the combination of the dimensionless value with the elastic ratio will yield in figuring out the strain interference across the actuator and the structure. So what does this help in? So thus the strain in the beam at the interface is always a function of free strain. So the strain whichever is coming at the interface will be always a function of free strain related to actuator. Remember, whenever you tell free strain, it is the strain what it is being obtained by the actuator and not the structure. So it is a part of the value what you get across the interface. Along with that, you get the ratio of the beam and the actuator elastic modulus and geometric parameters. The same equation is explained here in the sentence. I told you, right, this is a dimensionless parameter which will yield you the value of the strain across the actuator multiplied by the ratio of the beam to actuator's elastic modulus. So this will yield you in providing the value of P. So once you know the value of P, now you should consider the bending which has been happening in the actuator, okay, will result in the induced strain in the beam. That everyone knows. Bending happens due to the induced strain in the beam, the induced stress in the beam. So this is due to the load applied and the deformation which is happening in the beam due to the strain. So you have to integrate the triangular stress distribution. Why triangular stress distribution? You have the stress generated at the PZT patch. You have the stress generated across the beam. Along with that, you have the stress generated across the interface of the actuator and the structure. So combination of these three triangular distribution in a give is given by this equation. What they tell? So M is equal to 2 by 3 BH square into the stress across the structure. So this is the equation what you have to remember. Okay, so this will provide you the required equation to evaluate the triangular stress distribution. So the triangular stress distribution will be having a constant factor 2 by 3. B will be the width of the structure as well as the PZT patch, and H will be the height of the structure above the neutral axis, and this will be the shear stress above the neutral axis. So later, now this is the equation. So in this equation, we have to substitute some parameters. What do you substitute? You have to substitute for the stresses which are being produced. So the stresses which are produced is shown over here. The stress across the structure is minus P upon 1 minus P into the free strain. So that value now we will replace here. 2 by 3 is constant. B remains the same. H square remains the same. ES remains the same. Only the strain across the structure here will be replaced by this value. Okay. So you will substitute it and show this is the triangular stress distribution which is happening in the given structure, right? Which has a combination of PZT patch as well as the actuator. So this is the relationship what one need between the moment intensity and the piezoelectric strain. So M will always give the moment intensity, okay, with respect to the piezoelectric strain induced in the given body subjected to the mechanical loading which has been applied. So if they ask you to show the relationship between the moment intensity to the piezoelectric strain, this is how you have to show the equation. M always stands for the intensity of the moment. Again, it depends upon the moment at the external loading and moment at the internal loading. So that also will come in the next slide. So before going to that, you should be knowing how to use the derived equations here with respect to Hooke's law, so that you will get the relationship between strain and stress across the interface. So once you got across the interface, you should tell what you mean by P, which has two factors. One speaks about the elastic ratio, elastic modulus ratio, and another one speaks about the constant of proportionality, which is a dimensionless number. So once you tell what is P is equal to K times ER, then you have to show the integral triangular distribution of the stress which come across the structure, across the beam and the interface. So this will be an formula what you have to write. So after this, you will substitute the value of the strain across the structure which has been derived in the previous way. You will substitute and show how the moment intensity and the piezoelectric strain can be interrelated. So after this, you should be able to write a governing equation for the beam. And for that, you should be knowing some ranges. So what all these ranges are? Okay. So here, always you have to consider that the moment per unit length with the free strain in the PZT and the material and geometric properties will now compute the response to the beam of this bending moment. Means to say, the bending moment governing equation will help you to derive what is the moment which is taking place per unit area, per unit length, which is associated with the free strain. Always the bending moment will be associated with the free strain. And again, it will be affected by its material, with what material the PZT is done or any other piezo element is done, and what is the geometrical properties of it. So all the moment governing equation what you derive will be directly affected by the free strain of the piezo element as well as its material properties and geometrical properties. So based on that, now we have to compute the response of the beam, what you get based on the loading, moment loading. So here one has to understand the two regions of X parameters. Okay. So central to this is the observation, what you have to understand, the uniform distributed moment acting over the region. So the moment which is acting over the given region of the PZT patch will vary with two ranges. So X can be less than X2 or greater than X1. Okay. So this can be replaced with Beam's differential equation by 2-point moments. So one is X1 and one is X2. So what are these values of X? So we'll come to know a little bit later down in the slide, right? So before going to that, let me show you when they say the governing equation, it will be in this form. So you have to differentiate twice here to get the bending moment equation. So it will be d square by dx square. In the bracket, you will write capital M of x minus of small m of x. So what do you mean by the difference between the moment relation of small m and capital M? So capital M of x will be always associated to beam internal bending moment. Always when you have a structure and the PZ patch, the bending happens internally as well as externally. So the bending which is happening within the internal bending moment is always associated with capital M. And the bending moment and the beam internal bending moment and the beam external bending moment is always referred by small m of x. So from now onwards, if you see small m of x, it is nothing but the bending moment which is coming into picture due to external loading. And if you write capital M of x, then it is a bending moment which is coming into picture due to internal loading. So internal loading basically comes across the interface, whereas the external loading happens when you have the PZT patch at top of the structure and bottom of the structure. So that you have to understand. So the range for bending moment, internal bending moment, is given like this way. So C here stands for the capacitance of the given piezo element. And this will be the free strain of the given piezo element. Whenever you speak with bending moment, you speak about the parameters of the piezoelectric element only and not the structure. So bending moment mainly depends upon its capacitance value and the free strain value. So you will write this. So this value you get properly within the range if the value of x through which you are measuring the bending moment internally lies between two ranges. One is less than x2 and other one is greater than x1. So here the capacitance value, if you measure directly using semiconductor device analyzer, you get the value directly. Or else if you are computing theoretically in the mathematical form, you have to use this equation. So to find out the capacitance value, this is the equation what we use. So your E suffix S will be nothing but your elastic modulus of the structure into P upon 1 minus P, what we derived in the previous slide. Okay, so this value you have already, right? ES P by 1 minus P into 2 by 3 BS square, right? The same thing is being shown here. Only thing the difference is you won't be having the free strain here mentioned because it is only the capacitance value. So capacitance value will be away from the free strain. So if you exclude the free strain in the equation, so this entire unit will yield us in getting the capacitance value. The same thing has been written over here. The value of capacitance is within this range. And the other way of writing is, it can also be written as Heaviside step function. Instead of showing the moment values, like for external moment values, you can use the heavy step function. Usually we go with the external moment value only. In rare cases, some researchers have developed this also. They call it as Heaviside step function, in which if x will be less than 0, the step function what we consider will be equal to 0. If it is less than 0 means it can go towards the negative value. In that aspect also, we consider the step function to be equal to 0. If it is 0, then for the next step function, you can add the value of x. If it is 1, it becomes 0 plus 1. But if you consider x is less than 0 and you show a minus value over here, like -1 or +1, and then you go for step function in the next thing, and if you get the value of x, -1 and +1, it gets cancelled and becomes 0, and it shows the result at the neutral axis. Every time you cannot get those kind of values. So to be on safer side and not to get any negative values, even though if x is less than 0, we take the value of h of x as 0. And if the values are greater than 0, then for every step function, we will be taking the value of h. H is equal to 1. So both are the same in different way where we can go. It again depends upon for what applications you are using its values. So based on the requirement, you can either go with the external moment equation or the Heaviside step function. So once that is done, now we have to get a relation between the external moment equation to that of heavy step function. So how do you do it? You have both the equations here. You have m of x is equal to this much and you have h of x is equal to this much. So we will correlate both. So how you do it? So m of x will be equal to, you have the capacitance value in the previous slide, right? So this factor you have to consider for external moment, and hence when you are clubbing both, you will write the value of capacitance along with the free strain. So this is over. After that, you should take the concept of the step function. So step function can happen in two steps. So h of x minus x1, and the second is h of x minus x2. The next step, always you have to show the two step, so that even though the one step is 0, less than 0 here, the other step will show you at least one positive result. So, and as a result, to get the relation between the external moment and the heavy step function, we club both together and help to find out the equation. So this will help to give you the first and the second derivatives. The first Heaviside step 1 will the Heaviside step 1 function will help you to give the first derivative. The second Heaviside step function, what you have written, will provide you the second derivative. So this first and second derivative of the step functions, what you get are referred to be as delta x and delta dash x. Okay, or you can call that dou x and dou dash of x. So the first and the second derivatives of the step function will be represented by these two parameters. That shows that the equation what you have here has to be differentiated twice, and hence you will write two differentiated parameters. So when you have to differentiate twice, you have to write d square upon dx square. So to get the two derivatives of step function, you have to differentiate here twice, and hence for the same equation you will add d square upon dx square into external moment along the direction x. So this will be equal to the capacitance value, okay, into the free strain. Again, this step function has to be derived twice. This value, capacitance value, always remains same, constant. It is not affected by the variable, and hence this is a constant. And I told that even the free strain will not be affected in any way with respect to the bending of either compression or tension. And hence the free strain of the piezo element also is a constant. It will be not having any x variable in it, and hence you won't differentiate this also. Both the values, the capacitance and the free strain, will be a constant parameter. So you will write both these two outside, then you will differentiate this twice. The step function is a variable function, you have to differentiate twice. So you'll write d square upon dx square into the same term over here. And finally, this is a simplified form what you get. After, yeah, dou by dou x now is written as delta dash. Okay, so that you will replace by delta dash over here. And same thing will be written instead of dou by dou x. So this is the bending moment equation for external loading condition correlated with the step function with the constant variables also. So this represents 2-point moments what you are getting. One in the positive direction and other one is the opposite direction, right? Because x will be in one direction and x1 will be in other direction. So you will get the representation of the moments across the opposite sense. One x will be at x1 and the other direction will be at x2. That's what I told you. X1 will be in one direction and x2 will be in the other direction. And hence the moment what you get will be in the opposite sign. So moment 1 will be in the clockwise direction and the moment 1 you get will be in the anti-clockwise. So clockwise direction you take it as positive and anti-clockwise direction you take it as negative. And hence you get two opposite sense. So the same thing, in other words, you can tell that the moment distribution which is produced by any type of piezoelectric actuators will be always equivalent to the point moments with respect to what you are developing its values. Okay, both are same, both holds good. So the moment value with respect to the point what you're taking will always vary. It cannot be the same. So the same equation can be written in this way. So m of x here will show for an other value. Small m of x is different and capital M of x is different. I told you small m of x is referred for external loading and capital M of x is referred for internal bending moment. So when we assume that one is acting at x1 and other one is acting at x2, and we told that the distribution of moment produced by PZT will be always equal to the point moments what you take, then we can show the equation for internal bending moment also. So for internal bending moment, you will write it as equal to EI into d square by dx square into W of x. So where W of x will be nothing but the transverse displacement of the beam. Okay, so when you put this transverse displacement beam into equation 2.42, so where is our equation 2.42? Yeah. So if you put the value of transverse displacement beam into equation 2.42, because equation 2.42 has the external bending moment and the internal bending moment. So in place of internal bending moment, if we apply the concept of transverse displacement, then the equation changes. Okay, and the equation changes and it helps in developing the fourth order. Why fourth order comes into picture? Here the value of mx is having d square by dx square. The previous equation already had two differentiations, right? The actual governing equation is differentiated twice. When you add two more differentiations to the internal bending moment, then obviously you will get the fourth order of differential equation, and hence the equation changes to fourth order. So that you have to understand. Previously we had an equation for differential order of 2 because we had focused only for external bending moment. When you need the equation for internal bending moment also, again it has to be differentiated twice. So the combination of internal bending moment as well as the external bending moment will yield in the fourth order differential equation. So this equation is the most familiarly used and very commonly used equation. So whenever they ask you to derive an governing equation using the Bernoulli-Euler concept for bending moment, both for internal and external loading, you have to show until here. Okay, so this is the most familiar way of expressing the given governing equation when associated to beams. So beams could be anything. In our case, it is the structure with the PZT patch. So this will help to get the effective transverse load produced by the piezoelectric actuator patches. So this equation always help in knowing what is the effective transverse load. So this transverse load always happens across the interface, because again the same old sketch what I showed you in the beginning. This is the beam structure with PZT actuators, right? So this will show the effective transverse displacement which has been happening across the interface. So you have two interfaces, one at the top and one at the bottom. So due to the applied mechanical loading, the given beam structure can compress and it can expand. So due to compression and expansion, you will have the transverse displacement in the PZT patch as well as in the structure, and you will be having those variation even across the interface. So this helps to evaluate the transverse displacement what you are getting across the interface at the top as well as the bottom. So to get those values, you should have the derivative, you should have the differentiation for 4 times. So this is a common equation for beams governing equation what one has to use to evaluate what is the effective transverse load which has been produced by piezoelectric actuator patches. So next we have a small example what you have to understand related to the numericals. Okay, you have very few problems on harmonic excitation of your piezoelectric actuator based on the bending moment. See, we have now covered the entire syllabus of your module 1. It is a huge chapter of 10 hours. I hope we have taken 11 hours to complete it without the problems, because it was having n number of concepts and you're studying for the first time. And you have the numerical only related to the harmonic excitation, related to the beam model, what we have studied right now. So that 2 problems I will just explain you in the next class how to solve it. And you don't have the numericals related to the other models what we have studied, the uniform strain distribution and axial motion of the rods. Related to that, you don't have any problems. Only related to the beam, you have the problems what you have to understand. So everything is based on the bending moment equation, right? So if it is differentiated twice, then we are focusing only on the internal, only on the external moment loading. If it is differentiated 4 times, then we'll be evaluating the value of the internal bending moment as well as the external bending moment. So by using by seeing the equation, you should be able to identify what you are going to evaluate. So related to the problem on harmonic excitation, I will do it in the next class. Now you kindly let me know, it was a very huge derivative related to Euler's-Bernoulli equation. Hope you people have understood the concept with all the equation parameters. Kindly reply, guys.
Yes, ma'am.
Any doubt? Because if you get in the examination, it is the most frequently asked equation derivation with respect to the module 1. You have other derivations also related to uniform strain model, axial motion with respect to the rod, all those, but that is usually for 5 to 6 marks or whatsoever. But this is an very lengthy derivation what one has to understand clearly, where n number of parameters are derived. You can see it took 2 hours for us to complete one derivation. So you should be very careful in understanding. Just try to solve it once. So if you know the concept, you can derive by your own self. Only thing, you should understand the concept of piezo element, actuator, the structure and the interface, how you get the relation for the strain distribution first, the stress distribution, then how you superimpose both together, and how you try to get the relation between the stress and the strain, then how you focus on the value of H above the neutral axis. Then finally you will figure out and value of K in between the stress and the strain. And with the value of K, then you will help to get the bending moment, which could be internal bending moment or external bending moment. So if you need only internal bending moment, you have to differentiate twice. If you need again external bending moment, you have to differentiate twice. So if you need both, you have to differentiate for the fourth order. So once you do this, you will get the very commonly used bending moment governing equation. So this entire thing was been developed and derived by the researcher Euler, and hence it is called as Euler model. Okay. Is this clear? Hello.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Any doubts? Kindly you can ping me up in between or at the end of the class and let me know. So now, Harsha, are you there?
Yeah, ma'am.
Danush?
Yes, ma'am.
Mithun?
Yes, ma'am.
Sukrut?
Yes, ma'am.
Srinidhi?
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah. Where is Miss Mohan Ambal? She hasn't come. She is in?
No, ma'am, not yet asked her.
Okay, okay. Just let me know why she hasn't not attended now. Okay. Morning she was present, right? So why she's not there in the class? You just let me know. Now everyone write your name and USN in the chat room quickly. Three of you have written: Mithun, Danush, Sukrut, Harsha, Srinidhi. Kindly type your name and USN. Srinidhi, type your name and USN. Okay. See, after some time, I'll be posting a quiz including both the sessions of today's. So you see that you will submit the quiz within time as per the time schedule sent. Okay. So we'll see you again on tomorrow's class at 9:30. Until then, everyone, please take care and have a nice day.
Yes, ma'am.